Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today. And today, the Minnesota Timberwolves losing game one of the Western Conference Finals 114-88. It's a tough loss for this Timberwolves team opening up game one. I mean, they had a great first half in this game tonight. And I thought played really well, led by as much as 10 in the first half and did a really good job. The lead might have been higher than 10, honestly. And I think Minnesota deserves a lot of credit what they did in the first half, but they were god awful in the second half. Look, you can point the finger to OKC and talk about how great they were offensively in the second half. That can definitely be looked at as a reason why Minnesota got beat so poorly in this second half. But at the same time, they scored 70 points. Yeah, they scored 70 points in the second half. That was great by OKC, and that's hard to deal with if you're Minnesota. But also, Minnesota only scored 40 points in the second half. So, you've got to be maybe at the 55 to 60 range to possibly try to match. Look, even if they were at the 60 point area, 55 points in the second half, and you still lose by double digits. Even if they would have scored an extra 20 points in the second half, they still lose by, 6 points. So I don't know. Look, we could talk about Minnesota's offense being better, but Oklahoma City was just too good in this second half, and I don't know how much more Minnesota could have done in the first half. But just another really poor game for them in game one. Just like they did and also I just realized this while talking. They scored the same amount of points in game one in the Western Conference Finals than they did in the last game. The last game won 88 points in game one. They lost 88-99 against the Warriors. Now, the Warriors weren't that great offensively in that game one. OKC was a lot better, and that's why they got really killed. And actually, Minnesota was a lot better from three in this game tonight. Look, I'm not saying they were. They shot 15 for 51 from three. But another thing you look at it in that game one against Golden State, they only made 5 threes in that game one. So a lot better from three, even though they were very poor from three tonight. I mean, Julius Randle, I thought, was really the only guys that shot well from three tonight. 5 for 6 for Julius Randle from three. He was great, 28 and 8. But it's just a tough night for this Minnesota team. But great win for the Thunder to start off this Western Conference Finals series. I got to tell you guys what this series reminds me of. This series reminds me of the Warriors-Blazers series, a couple years ago in that 2019 Conference Finals. Just, to me, there's a couple things that remind me of. The family thing with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That's one thing that makes me think of that series, because that series had Seth Curry versus Steph Curry. But also, just to me, I think that another thing that makes me think of it as well is the fact that you've got a team that is really better than the other, and just dominates the other team. And I'm talking about OKC dominating Minnesota. We'll see if that's the way this series plays out, if this is something OKC continues to do, because that's something Golden State did in that series against Portland. They really had a good series. That series swept them. So, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how Minnesota bounces back. Here's something I pointed out before the game, and that's why I thought OKC would win and maybe blow them out. The team that always has the team that always has more rest does not play well and loses. You saw that in the second round too. You really saw that in the second round last a couple weeks ago when the second round started. You saw Minnesota, who had more rest than the Golden State Warriors, lose and look terrible against Golden State. You saw the same thing with OKC. They had a lot more rest than Denver. Denver was in a 7-game series. OKC swept the Grizzlies. OKC looked really bad in game one and looked rusty to start off the game. Denver won. You saw the same thing in the Eastern Conference. Boston had more rest than New York, because New York had a 6-game series that ended a little bit after the Boston Celtics 5-game series of Orlando ended. New York won game one. And you can also look at the Cavs-Pacers. The Cavs series ended a couple days before the Pacers did, when they swept the Heat, and the Pacers series ended about 2 days after that, and the Pacers won game one. The team that had more rest in the second round was the team that lost in game one. Now, also in the last round, there was only one team. There's only one team. There were two teams. There were two teams that bounced back from that game one deficit. There were two teams that bounced back from that game one loss, and knocked off the rust. And that was both of these teams right here. Minnesota in game two against the Warriors beat them, bounced back after their poor game one performance. And OKC did the same thing against Denver. Now, we'll see if Minnesota can do that again in game two. That will be very interesting. But I want to get into some stats real quick, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was amazing tonight. But when we say how amazing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was, I think you really just have to talk about the second half, because you cannot say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was amazing in this entire game tonight, because that is just not true. He was terrible in the first half, but I think the way you saw, a switch in him in the second half was what was amazing about this performance for him tonight. In the first half, he was 2 for 13 from the floor, and then what do we see in the second half? 8 for 14 from the floor. 31 points for Shai tonight, 11 for 14 at the free throw line. Yeah, I know the guy shot a lot of free throws, but at the same time, I still think he had a lot of great plays tonight, a lot of great shots tonight that were outside of free throws. And there were a lot of fouls that I think he did have that they were actually fouls. But at the same time, there were probably a lot of fouls that they weren't fouls. So, he had this there's this unbelievable and one play that he had where he gets knocked to the ground, he just throws it up, he's almost half onto the ground, and he still makes the shot. That is 100% a foul if someone pushes you on the ground. I think a lot of times he's foul baiting, but there's also a lot of times he gets slapped, he gets pushed. So, I think it's a little bit of both. Of a lot of teams are just hitting him because they can't guard him, but then a lot of times you will see the foul baiting from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But I thought this was a great performance. On top of that, he had 9 assists, and he didn't even play in the last couple minutes of the ball game. Shai probably, if he would have played, if they would have needed him the entire night tonight, I'm going to predict that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tonight would have maybe had a 35-10 game tonight if he's out there full game. But he did not play the last couple minutes of this basketball game. Last 2.5 minutes maybe it was. And then, another guy that was great tonight was Jalen Williams, I thought. Shooting-wise, maybe not so much. 19 points. I thought he made some great plays to score on the scoring end, but just efficiency wasn't great, 7 for 18. But I thought where he was great was defensively. He had 5 steals. He was great on the rebounding end with 8 rebounds. He had 5 assists. Chet Holmgren, I thought, was solid. Didn't play that much, though, but still, to me, was solid. 26 minutes, 6 for 9 from the floor, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, 1 steal. Isaiah Hartenstein also looked really good, but did not play that much. 12 points for Hartenstein, 5 rebounds. Lou Dort had 5 points. And off the bench, they gave a lot of minutes to Alex Caruso and Kesson Wallace today. Wallace did a really good job facilitating and defensively tonight. He had 7 assists in 33 minutes, 1 for 3 from 3, one steal. Then Alex Caruso had 9 points, was perfect from 3 for 3 with 3 rebounds, 8 points for Kenrich Williams. He got good minutes in this game tonight with some of the minutes he's got in the postseason. 10 minutes for Williams, 3 for 3, 2 for 2 from 3 rebounds. Williams might have earned himself some more minutes in this series as it goes on. Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins both played 13 minutes. Joe was actually, I thought this was amazing for Isaiah Joe with only 13 minutes being a guard and getting 8 rebounds. I think getting 8 rebounds is good for a guard. A guard that is playing a lot of minutes. 8 rebounds for a guard and only 13 minutes is really. That's insane. But 7 points, 1 for 2 from 3, 1 for 2 from the floor. All of his shots were threes, 4 free throws. All of them went in for Joe. I thought his performance was very underrated for this Thunder team tonight. Aaron Wiggins, he wasn't as good. 1 for 3 tonight, 2 points, 3 rebounds for Wiggins. That was it. I'm going to get to Minnesota real quick. I thought Julius Randle was excellent in this game tonight. 28 points, 8 rebounds. McDaniels, there were some foul trouble. He did foul out in this game, 7 points, 6 rebounds. You need him to be better. Rudy Gobert only played 21 minutes. He struggled, 2 points, 3 rebounds. But it is a different matchup for Gobert. The last matchup where he had some success, you're facing a Warriors team that doesn't have a real center. Your two tallest guys on the floor, Jimmy Butler at 6'9" and Draymond Green at 6'5". In the starting lineup. This team, Oklahoma City, has two big 7-footers in the starting lineup. This is a different task for Rudy Gobert, and you saw him deal with some trouble tonight with that. Mike Conley, I thought he got a lot of good open looks in this game tonight, but some of them just couldn't fall down. 2 for 8 for Conley, 1 for 5 from 3, 3 assists, 3 rebounds with his 7 points. You need Conley to play better. Anthony Edwards, this was the biggest disappointment of the night for Minnesota. A good 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 18 points. He only took 1 shot in the fourth quarter. That is very disappointing. Look, it's just you need him to play better. You need him to shoot more. Sure, some of the shots aren't falling down. Edwards came into the fourth quarter being 5 for 12, but that's not as a poor of enough performance to look at the game and say I shouldn't shoot the ball. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was 2 for 13 at halftime. He didn't stop shooting the ball. I mean, he still took 14 shot attempts in the first half. Edwards had some looks. I thought that Oklahoma City was double teaming a lot, which definitely made it harder for Edwards to potentially shoot the ball. But at the same time, Edwards still had some good open looks that he passed up. And what it reminds me of is in Game 2 of the first round when the Knicks and Pistons played, and Karl-Anthony Towns only takes no shots in the fourth quarter. And the difference with Karl-Anthony Towns is he's the second option. Jalen Brunson is a guy that you can look at to go and score and be the guy. You've got Mikal Bridges, you've got OG Anunoby, you've got Josh Hart. So Karl-Anthony Towns can maybe sit back and do that. And yes, you've got Julius Randle, and Julius Randle is great, but there were too many guys struggling tonight outside of Julius Randle, with McDaniels being in foul trouble, Gobert struggling, Mike Conley struggling, DiVincenzo in a W struggling. For Edwards to only take 1 shot in the fourth quarter. If I am Chris Finch, we're having a discussion about you need to take shots. You gotta take over in the fourth quarter. You can't do that again. And honestly, this might have been a closer game in the fourth quarter if Edwards just took over. But that is I think one of the most disappointing games I've seen from him. I'm a big Edwards fan. I thought that was one of the most you can't be you're that guy. I mean, you are the team. You are the leader. You're the best guy on the team. You're the second best player on the floor of both teams. You're too good to be only taking 1 shot attempt in the fourth quarter. A fourth quarter that, at times it was a 10-point game in the fourth quarter. Sure, OKC won by 26 points, but it wasn't always in the fourth quarter that big of a lead. Minnesota had got that deficit down to 9 or 8 a couple times in the fourth quarter. So if Edwards would have showed up a little bit, maybe this would be a closer game. But that is something you need more in Game 2. Let me know your thoughts on this game tonight in the comment section, and peace out.